Tonight, we talk about Christianity and its obsession with mockery. I mean, we'll have a very special episode about how people are always making fun of Christianity and never other religions because they're just so mean. And being irreverent to a divine figure is just the cruelest thing you could possibly do. We'll watch a video about how celebrities were mean to Jesus, read articles about how to respond when other people aren't nice to your religion, and much, much more. Wait, was that mockery? Good. This is Zadanza.
Season's greetings, folks at home. I'm going to keep saying season's greetings just every time because I just think it's funny, I think, at this point. Welcome to another episode of Zadanza. I'm Objectively Dan. That's Profit Aside. This is the weekly Thursday night live stream, baby, where we talk about all kinds of stuff. But, folks, I need to start off this episode with an apology because Zod was being very sarcastic and very crude in his opening. We've never mocked anybody on this show, and we'll continue to not mock people ever because we're better than that. I think we're too highbrow, is what I would say.
If there's anybody we especially wouldn't mock, it's Frank Turek.
No.
Of all the people we don't mock him the most.
Saint, please, Apostle Saint Frank Turek. Zod, let's use our proper monikers here, okay? This is Zadanza, the show where we never mock people for anything because we're too good for that. But we are going to be talking about mockery today in general. Specifically, Christians who say that atheists mock people all the time, and then we're going to mock that, I guess. It's a little meta in some ways, right? So I don't know how to exactly to describe it.
So I think one thing we can just clear the air about right off the bat, and I think we're on the same page about this, but let us know in the chat if you're not. Christians don't care an awful lot for making fun of any aspect of their religion. I've made cartoons where God and Jesus swear and just act like people and they're, are the butt of jokes. Don't like that so much. And, I'm really not a big fan of mocking Christians as people. There are some obvious bad actors that I won't mind having a little bit of fun at their expense. But, I have family members who are Christians, and I wouldn't want anybody showing up at my house and, giving them a hard time just because of what they believe. And so for sincere believers, treat them as decent people, all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, I think there's this big unfortunate tendency to conflate any kind of criticism or mockery of ideas with mockery of them as people. And so I think the idea should be up for fair game. What do you think, Dan?
I think there's a difference between having good fun and viewing something as worthy of contempt, right? Like, there's a never-ending debate about what we should keep sacred, what we should keep, privileged and above mockery in comedy versus not. And I don't think any of us could ever answer a question like that. What I'm interested in is, like, look, we'll dunk on atheists all the time. We'll our community is full of bullshit and dumb stuff. But like when Christians, when we call out some of the bad acting, it's always in this framing of either it doesn't happen or it does happen and it's just in small quantities or numbers, or shut up and don't talk about this, right? It's like it's never an honest conversation or self-reflection in Christian communities. Like the atheist community, for example, has had its issues, but you know who's like the biggest people who call it out? Fucking other atheists. Other atheists hate other atheists. I don't know if that's just a fact of life or what, but like at least there's some self-reflection involved, right? Christianity broadly has only recently like caught up to that trend, I think, of
Yeah,
self-reflection.
if an atheist public figure turns bad or becomes abusive or something, we are going to dogpile them faster than anybody else does. We don't circle
Yeah.
the wagons and stick up for them no matter what and try to shuffle it under the rug. So
Mm-hmm.
big difference there. I think one aspect of this that's worth calling out is, number one, it's very important. I think there is an important space for mockery of Christian ideas, of just religious ideas in general, um, because number one, I've pointed this out before. The figures of God and Jesus are not real people. Surprise, surprise, or at least that's not the way we see them. And if you want to get at the heart of what we intend to do when we're engaging in satire or mockery, you have to take it from the perspective of how we see those characters. I see those characters personally as figureheads that are elevated to coerce some level of obedience out of people. That's the primary function of those characters. I don't
Yeah.
think people intend to use it in a crass way, but they end up becoming authority figures that you call people out on their actions on behalf of. And because
Yeah.
God realistically, God is an element of your own mind, you produce that. He's some aspect of your thinking, and if you're going to hold people accountable to some aspect of your thinking as if it's a divine being, I think the process by how that happens and the character should be taken down a peg.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
the
go
other
ahead.
thing too, no, you make a good point. Here's the other thing I've been thinking about this week in particular, in preparation for talking about this, is like, is what I really wonder sometimes on if what we do is constructive, right? If we're doing the best for what we aim or set out to achieve, and what is it that we aim to set out or achieve? I don't think, in my heart at least, I'm here to knock individual people down. I mean, we do make fun of folks like Frank Turek and stuff. Okay, I guess we do kind of do a little bit of that, but it's more like those are just like, I don't know, set decorations on the larger stage of Christianity, right? It's like there's a bigger thing going on, and I want to point out the bigger thing. I mean, I'm more interested in Christian culture. I'm more interested in how communities actually run and operate, the unspoken rules versus the spoken, right? And
Yeah.
more about like giving people a space to examine and maybe look at that in a more clear-headed way. That's something that I could never do in a Christian community, right? We could never do a show like this in a church environment, like it's just not possible for many reasons. So I don't know. I guess that's a lot of my thinkings on it.
Yeah, and when you get to the purpose of this, I think there ultimately should be a purpose, and you should be re-examining that. I stopped
Mm.
making those cartoons partly because I just didn't have the time for it. They're very time consuming. But I think if I were to go back to that, I think I would do it in a different tone. There's a level of abrasiveness to it that I don't know that I would have done in hindsight. But ultimately, the purpose of that, I think, is those figureheads still dwell somewhere in your head. If you've ever watched Theremin Trees, he talks about the power of residual voices still remaining in your head from authority figures when you were younger and stuff like that. And God and Jesus, I think, are largely personifications of guilt trips or um, I don't know, expectations of previous authorities in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you mock them, you make them a little smaller and less serious to people in the minds of people who are still struggling with what to do with those. And I think there is a place for that.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
brings it into a more realistic place in their mind and makes it become less intimidating. And I think that is worthwhile.
Yeah. Like God may not be real. Jesus may or may not have been a real person. So those literally have no power. But the institutions that represent those figures absolutely do. And oftentimes speak in supposition of God or Jesus or what have you, right? Whether they intend to or not, I do think a lot of times it's just like an inherited unintentional part of the design of the system, right? But some
Yeah.
people very much willingly partake in that power dynamic and take advantage of that. So it's something that's worth exploring. But Christians they don't really understand that. They kind of look at us and they say, well, why do we waste our time on something that we don't think is real, right? And it's a little bit more complicated than that, right?
Oh, I've never heard that one.
Oh, well, good for you. That'd be crazy, honestly. I would not believe you if you were serious about that at this point in your YouTube
there are all
career.
kinds of yeah, I hear that in comments almost daily. There are all kinds of first defenses Christians put up when they deal with any kind of disagreement or anything that they consider mockery. And when I say the word mockery, I don't actually always mean mockery. I mean this whole body of stuff that Christians automatically put in a category of mockery. I think part of the problem here is they think that their institutions and their beliefs belong on a certain pedestal where they're simply beyond reproach and should not even be questioned. And any kind of questioning or sideways joke or anything instantly becomes classified as mockery. And we're going to see that in some of the stuff we break down today.
Yeah.
So part of it is a simple oversensitivity, but a lot of the first defenses they put up do involve things like asking, well, why would you make fun of a God you don't believe in? Or basically categorizing what we're doing. Part of it is, well, why make fun of Christianity all the time? Why are you always making fun of God and Jesus? Why don't you spend equal time making fun of Muhammad or Thor or whatever? And they like to think that it's just because you're singling their religion out just to be mean, when really that is the religion that's most relevant.
Yeah,
so,
at least to us. Like if I grew up in Iran, I have no doubts that I would be talking about Islam like every week. It's just a matter of circumstance that Christianity is my main topic of interest for the most part. Doesn't mean I won't make fun of Islam. I'll talk about dumb shit about Islam anytime you want me to. It's just, I don't know. I didn't grow up with it though, right? It's a little bit different.
Yeah, like I think there is a big place for making fun of Islam. Over here, it hits differently. It's not, it didn't touch people's lives in the same way that Christianity has touched people's lives. Additionally, there is this aspect, and people might disagree with this to some extent for valid reasons. There is an element of what amounts to xenophobia behind going after Islam. I think it's equally valid. I think it becomes unfair to totally deflect criticism of that religion, especially for ex-Muslims. But what most people hear over here is, well, that's what the weird bad side full of brown people does, instead of actually a broad criticism of religion that should apply both ways.
Yeah, it hits different for sure. I got accused of being Islamophobic on this very channel, Zod. Did you know that? There was a comment. I confused Saddam Hussein with Osama bin Laden. I said,
I remember that comment.
I think I was talking about Osama bin Laden's porn drive, and I think I said Saddam Hussein instead, and I got it confused, and someone said that was Islamophobic. I don't know if they were joking or not, but that's just me being stupid. That's not me being Islamophobic. The fact that they're both Muslim doesn't really have anything to do with it.
And Thor is just a red herring. Like that has nothing to do with it. The reason if I stub my toe, I don't say like Thor on a stick or something like that. I don't know what it'd be. Is that number one, that name doesn't carry the same power. It doesn't feel like an adequate expression because he's just this intangible god of another culture or a Marvel character. And Thor has been mocked. Like I would say that some of the Marvel depictions of him would count as mockery if you saw him as a real god. But it just doesn't hit the same way. It doesn't have the same impact. And you're not critiquing any idea that's relevant in our society. So
Here's Shiver saying, my partner got called Osama bin Laden today while we were out. See, that's fucking racism, right? Or that's xenophobia, or that's, an example of an ethnocentrist culture doing ethnocentrist bullshit. And that's why, like, I've had ex-Muslim guests on the various shows that I've conducted. And they're, of course, much more willing to be like, no, fuck Islam, right? Because they're ex-Muslim and they talk about it so freely. And it's like, I obviously I feel the same way, but it's hard to talk about those criticisms with the same level of vigor because the vibe is just different. I don't know what it is. It's hard. Maybe it's just because I've personally known people who will chase shit like what Shiver's partner experienced today. Like growing up in Texas, there's definitely fucking racist ass people who say the kind of shit about Muslim people that I just broadly speaking don't think is true, particularly with American Muslims, right, in general. But regardless, it's all bullshit. It's not a debate of, oh, is this thing less bullshit than the other thing? No, it's just more like we just have a better time making fun of Christianity because we're much more educated on the subject, and partly because we grew up with it. So that's really all it is. But Zod, let's take our mockery and forward it towards some more specific things, huh? Let's bring up a video you got for us.
So we have. I just want to highlight this real quick. A couple things. First off, big picture. Today we're going to talk about mockery of Christianity or perceived mockery of Christianity. And when we watch this video, a lot of what they call mockery, pretty light. Like you might say, Dan, that they overreact slightly to some of these offhand comments that get made. So maybe a little oversensitivity, but this is also coming from Christians who, I don't want to classify across the board and say that one person's statement contradicts another person's statement or whatever, or that amounts to a personal contradiction. But a lot of this whole, well, everyone should take a joke, people are snowflakes too much today and stuff like that comes from Christians. So keep that in mind when we're watching this. Also keep in mind in our next episode, we're going to talk about the reverse of this. So as much as Christians like to complain about mockery, do they possibly mock other people? And we're going to, Dan and I are going to scour the internet and see if there's ever been a sign of Christians mocking atheists.
We're going to have to look hard and far, but by golly, we'll do it.
If we come up with anything, we'll show it.
Scant as it may be, we'll figure out something.
So that's next week. Today, we're going to watch a short video with examples of quote unquote people mocking Jesus. Then we're going to talk about a school's policy on mockery, which I found very interesting, having worked at a Christian school myself. And then a couple articles about, how to deal with mockery as a Christian. But let's throw up this video. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Put
that bad boy on
Jesus in her live performance. Watch very carefully because something mysterious is about to happen to Lady Gaga as she mocks.
We should give context on this video because the title of this video. What is the title of this video again, Zod? It was like top 10. It wasn't even a top 10. It was like most blasphemous celebrities of 2023, something like that.
No, it's Lady Gaga mocks God and gets instant judgment.
That's what this one is. Lady Gaga gets mocked. Okay, yeah. I'm getting it confused with another video I found on this guy's channel talking about blasphemous celebrities. Running theme. They have his most views. I can see why he does it, I guess. But yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Lady Gaga being blasphemous and
so it's titled Lady Gaga being blasphemous. They go through a bunch of people and then they park on Mary Magdalene, right?
Yeah. So, well, no, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert's on. We'll get there.
It's called foreshadowing. Okay, let's go.
It's called foreshadowing. Okay, all right.
Isn't foreshadowing where you tell people the whole thing that's coming up?
Yeah, you tell people exactly the exact exposition of the video. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Right, Jesus in her live performance. Here is a list of.
So, did everybody catch what happened there?
Yeah. Let's start. We kind of interrupted. Let's start from the beginning again.
So watch. They say, watch what happens to Lady Gaga. This is not a coincidence.
Watch very carefully because something mysterious is about to happen to Lady Gaga as she mocks Jesus in her live performance. Here is a list of.
Yeah.
So what's the mysterious thing that isn't a coincidence?
I guess she happens to be performing this blasphemous song that she's probably sung for like the 100th time. And in this particular instance, she had a wardrobe malfunction. So I guess that's God.
Oh, is that what it was?
She mocks Jesus in her live performance.
I thought she got hit on the head.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. She did get hit. Sorry. I'm mixing it up with something else in another video I think I saw of this guy. But yeah, okay, she gets hit on the head on stage for singing about Judas. And I guess that's an act of God in this guy's eyes.
Yeah, you're up on stage with a lot of complicated rigging and mechanisms and stuff, and in one performance, you get bumped on the head. Obviously, number one, he calls it mysterious. He says it can't be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
You know what would be? You know what would be weird if she got bonked on the head every time she sung that song. That would be weird.
Yeah.
You know, I would say, yeah, there's something going on there. This is just a stage malfunction is really what's going on. But anyway.
Yeah, and it's interesting when somebody, quote unquote, mocks God and something happens, that's God punishing them. Say, like, remember in the Passion of the Christ, there's this whole thing about how James Caviezel was up on the cross and got struck by lightning and all this other stuff happened?
Yeah, remember that?
They didn't think that any particular God was trying to punish him for making the Passion of the Christ. That was like, I don't know, powers of
Well, I'm sure some of them did, Zod. You know, I'm sure at least one person, you know. But regardless, again, this guy's whole video is centered in terms of the the thumbnail and title around this particular thing that happened at a concert one time, I guess, as an act of God.
Yeah.
Now, I wish God, if God was really serious, maybe he would, like, end her career somehow or keep her from singing this song again, but she just gets bonked in the head during a performance.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right.
Yeah, like if she just suddenly went mute, or she tried to open her mouth to sing the song and just started blessing the name of Jesus or speaking in tongues. Yeah. Maybe that would be certainly weird if you didn't just take it as part of the act. But, you are right. There might be someone out there who thinks the Passion of the Christ was God's wrath. But I would bet that was like an anti-Catholic or something like that. Nobody sees that happen to somebody. Nobody sees that happen to somebody they agree with or like, and suddenly reverse their perspective on religion. Somehow their interpretation always aligns with what they already believe and who they don't like. Anyway, let's go.
Yeah. The 8 people in Hollywood who really hate God. And before you hear number 7 admit something very concerning, first, who might you add to this list? Okay, number 7, Rihanna. Rihanna actually grew up in a Christian home in Barbados. But when you hear this scary statement, you will know she has quite clearly rejected her family's upbringing.
Why is your hand over your eyes?
Because I'm a devil worshiper. What are you talking about?
Number 6.
That's it.
That was it.
I laughed out loud when I first saw that. I had to replay it. It was so funny. I couldn't believe it. Like, yeah, that's it. No other context. Here's the thing Rihanna said in an interview while laughing one time. And I guess she's like a really serious devil worshiper now. So,
we live in a society where there's this narrative of God and the devil and all these characters mean something, and so offhand you make a comment, "Oh, I'm a devil worshiper." Like, there probably wasn't even any Christian intent behind that, or they didn't necessarily have to be. It's just a joke within the context of, I don't know, what we think about good guys and bad guys spiritually.
Yeah. But I definitely know people that think like this, though, Zod. When I was in school, I remember in high school, like when Justin Bieber was still really popular, there was somebody in my Spanish class talking about how had Justin Bieber had like joined the Illuminati and stuff, and there was like he was like telling me about this YouTube video that was going all into it and stuff. Now, oh yeah, he's like really serious about it because like Justin Bieber made a offhanded comment saying like, yeah, the Illuminati is real when he was like 18 or 19 or whatever and doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And people were like, oh wow, Justin Bieber's like exposing the industry. He just doesn't understand how Hollywood works, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely people that really think that shit's real, I guess. And this guy's definitely taking Rihanna way too seriously. But
yeah, that's why we're doing this. If this wasn't a phenomenon within Christianity, what would be the point of this video, right? But people say this stuff a lot.
Is this woman here? And she gained her 5 minutes of internet fame by doing this to the Bible at SatanCon 2023. Oprah Winfrey is sadly...
That's it. That's another one. That's number 6. He's
She ripped
spitting
the
them.
Bible.
He's going off real fast. And you'll see why he does this really fast, because this ends up not being the main point of this godforsaken too long video. But it doesn't even get the lady a name. Just like number 6 on the worst blasphemous people 2023 is just this lady at SatanCon. Maybe not like, I don't know, the head organizer of SatanCon or whatever. No, it's just the lady on the stage tearing out Bible pages. Like, okay, all right.
Even within the context of this video, he like blows by the fact that a SatanCon exists and all these people are going to it. And he's like, oh, wow, this lady ripped a Bible. Like, what do you think people are doing with Bibles at SatanCon, number one?
Yeah.
Number two, it's just an irreverent gesture.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure SatanCon does not, for one, literally believe in Satan. I doubt it's that kind of Satanism. Maybe it is, maybe. But I would think that this is more of a symbolic gesture just against organized religion. Also, have we never seen Christians like burn books that they think are bad or destroy them or anything? This is just...
It's true. It's true.
I personally am not a fan of that kind of expression, like ripping up Bibles and stuff like that. I think it's counterproductive, but it's not the dramatic thing he thinks it is.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it's SatanCon, okay? Like, if anybody's gonna do that shit, it's gonna be done at SatanCon. It's like expected at this point. It's whatever. I don't know. It's just, the tiniest group of people that I don't think would ever want to inflict harm or violence on anyone, but the fact that she's ripping up a book is really pissing people off. Oh yeah, correct. Greg Locke.
Greg Locke cough.
Yeah. Shout outs to Pastor Greg Locke. Oh boy, we need to talk about him.
Not only in this video here will you...
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. What's that?
No, we need to do a whole episode on Greg Locke one day. If we're gonna mock people, I'm down for mocking Greg Locke. Honestly, I'm doing
mock the lock.
Let's mock.
Oprah Winfrey is sadly our number 5. Not only in this video here will you hear her say that Jesus Christ is not the only way to heaven, but when she went on the Stephen Colbert show, she and him, although they both profess to be Christians, mocked God in a way that is so bad, I'm actually going to have to cover up the image so I don't break the second commandment.
Okay, before we actually show this one, I love that he actually says, this one's so bad. Like, he talks up just how absolutely horrible this is, and he actually has to cover it up. And did you catch why he has to cover it up?
Yeah, because of the second commandment, I believe is what he said.
He thinks if he even shows a replay of this, then he's making a graven display of God, and that's breaking the commandment. Display. Like, come on. Chill out, dude.
Bruh, Steven, what's up? Hey!
Oh, hey! Hey, God, it's God, everybody. Give it up for the Lord.
Hey, everybody. I just spit out my gum.
I'm sorry about this, Oprah. I apologize. Can I help you, Lord? I'm kind of in the middle of talking to somebody important.
Oh, I know, Steven. I'm a huge fan.
That's great to hear. I'm a big fan of yours too, God. I really am.
Wow, Oprah knows who I am? I can't wait to tell Jesus. Oprah Winfrey 2020, yes she can.
You've probably already...
Yep, and there it is. He just ends it right there. He's so quick with these. So much to talk about there, Zod. Yeah. So much to talk about.
Yeah, it's just... Oops, sorry, wrong one. It's just a fresco painting of God.
Yeah.
And yes, Shivers, they did censor God's picture, because if he didn't censor it, he'd be making a graven image of the Lord.
Yep. First of all...
But these...
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You first.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, both these people are Christians, right?
Yeah, ostensibly.
I think he was acknowledging that she's a Christian. He's a Catholic. He talks about it pretty openly a lot on his show.
Yeah.
Just the fact that as a gag they had God talk. They didn't make fun of God. It was a little lighthearted, and they treated him like just a playful character. But okay,
the thing is, first of all, she says, "Oh, I'm a big fan," because I believe Oprah Winfrey does believe in God. I do. I also Stephen Colbert definitely does. Right? Like I do believe they're sincere about their God belief. They're obviously both like liberals, right? And so their God belief is just whatever is convenient for them at any given time. Like, I'm not going to say they're the most consistent Christians ever, because they're not, and they're both hypocrites, so whatever. But like, besides that, like, it's very milquetoast. First of all, the clip isn't funny. It's a really bad Stephen Colbert joke, which when you run a show like his, you're going to have some stinkers because they do stuff like every week, and that's just how it is. But yeah, it's just to announce Oprah Winfrey's like fake campaign. I think, I don't even know. I don't think that was real. I think it was just, how funny would it be if God endorsed Oprah Winfrey, I guess is the joke there. I don't know. Like, it's not something you should think about for more than 5 minutes, but this guy made a video about it apparently.
Yeah. My take on Colbert is that he seems like a sincere Christian or Catholic from the things I've heard him say. He's definitely on the liberal side, and I think he compartmentalizes that part of his life.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'd necessarily say he's insincere or he's a hypocrite, but he's definitely in a different place in his faith, clearly, than most fundamentalists are, than this person is.
Yeah.
But that's how like oversensitive they are. If other people who are a different style of Christians than you do some playful thing with God, then you use it as this big, huge, dramatic example of how the world's full of God mockers and stuff.
Yeah. Which, first of all, okay, Colbert, again, I think he's sincere in his beliefs. Yeah, you're right. He has to be compartmentalizing, because folks like Colbert get to have the benefit of being the good guy that believes in God or whatever, and then also, not having to be consistent with his faith at all. Like, I almost guarantee you, like, Stephen Colbert is okay with abortion. Like, I know it in my heart that has to be true. Whereas, like, you can't do that as a Catholic. Like, that's just not a thing that's consistent with most Catholic people. You know what I mean? It's like you can just as long as you get to have the whole, I'm in Hollywood, but I also believe in God, and that makes me a cool good guy. Like, that's Colbert's whole thing, I feel like, personally. Now, Oprah will sell her soul for the devil. I believe that, because Oprah has all kinds of spiritualist bullshit and con artists and stuff on her show. I think hers is definitely on the more just whatever sells kind of side. I would totally believe it's less sincere than Colbert, but we're getting into celebrity semantics here. Really doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah, I probably overstated what their faith actually meant in their lives and stuff like that to make a point, but I still think they don't mean to be like fully anti-God or anything like that. This was a lighthearted, playful thing. Yeah. And even if I wouldn't be, I think Stephen is sincerely Christian, but I think you're right. His profession, whatever light professions of faith he makes on his show, is an easy gesture that wins him some goodwill with his audience. He gets to be the liberal, but he's also not one of the filthy atheists.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good way of shoring up his audience. But even if it's purely a strategic move, that should play into your understanding of what he's doing when he displays God on there. It's probably meant to be a lighthearted thing, not an open mockery. I don't know.
Yeah, but think about this, when you were a sincere Christian, right? Would you think a display like Colbert's would even still be appropriate in any way? Like, do you think that that's not mocking in some way?
I think I took stuff like that all right. I think that was what he does is close to the equivalent of the Monty Python God in the clouds.
Yeah, but Monty Python is also extremely divisive amongst Christians too, though, right? Like, I was not allowed to watch Monty Python growing up.
But if you're looking for my perspective on it, I knew that God display in Monty Python was like, kind of naughty and everything, but it's one of those things you get a guilty little giggle out of. It didn't deeply offend me or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that one was way more offensive than Colbert's. Colbert's was just this lighthearted little jokey character.
Yeah. I'm just saying,
I feel like we might have parked on this long enough.
You're probably right. All I'm saying is I don't think Colbert's bit would play well with my church. You know what I mean? I don't think they would appreciate it, So.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I totally agree with that. And again, that's why this is relevant to talk about and not just one doofus's video. Like this shows how oversensitive a lot of evangelicals are.
Yes.
To the point that they draw such a tight circle around themselves and around what's appropriate. And I guess that's the point I wanted to get at with this, that even people who are somewhat professing Christians or have some reverence in their heart on some level toward God or some warm feelings for him, they make any kind of light joke and all of a sudden they're huge God mockers who are siding with the devil.
You're right.
I don't know.
Which is why Stephen Colbert
go.
is siding with the devil. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I think we can definitively say that.
They disobeyed
especially
the
after watching
commandment
this.
as well.
You've seen this acceptance speech, so you'll know exactly why comedian Kathy Griffin is number 4.
A lot of people come up here and they thank Jesus for this award. I want you to know that no one had less to do with this award than Jesus. He didn't help me a bit. So all I can say is this award is my God now.
I messed up in December when I released a
Oh, man. Of all people, Kathy Griffin, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't make a defense for that one. That was mocking, straight up.
Yeah.
You know? He's right. That is just openly mocking Christianity on national television. You know, he got one.
Okay. I still think there's some room for like having a sense of realism about what happened though. Like if you take what she said on a literal basis, it's just simply saying there's a realistic point to be made, which is I feel like I did this. It didn't have to do with any religious figure. Also, what she could be doing could be seen as mocking performative gestures of thanking Jesus for all your awards and stuff like that. There is clearly some level of mockery, but really what is it mocking and how deeply is it mocking it is what I'm wondering. Like, is that really deeply offensive toward people's religions, or should you see it as that way if you have any kind of sense of humor?
According to Wikipedia, Griffin later said she meant the remark to be a satire of celebrities who thank Jesus for their awards, especially artists who are controversial in their speech and actions, rather than as a slight on Jesus. The Academy said her, quote, offensive remarks will not be a part of the telecast on Saturday night. And Griffin said that she was fired from an appearance on Hannah Montana because of her Emmy acceptance speech. So it did have consequences for her, I guess.
And then after she got fired from that appearance, everybody on the evangelical right just crawled out of the woodwork and started complaining about cancel culture, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true. I'm still marveling at the fact that she was ever going to be on Hannah Montana. Why is Kathy Griffin? Why was that a thing? What? That's crazy. But anyway, yeah, Kathy Griffin is super atheist, though, as far as I know.
I would say she's done plenty of stuff that is offensive enough that shouldn't even like register on the
No, not for me. No. Remember when she made a picture of the president holding up the president's head?
Let's not describe this too clearly for the YouTube bots.
We're just reporting news at this point, so I'm not making any open and direct threats to the president. But anyway.
All right.
Let's just moving on.
Parse out your sentence structure properly there.
Video on the worst God mockers of 2023, and for some reason I completely forgot to mention Doja Cat and how she has quite literally spent the entire year mocking and imitating dark biblical things. However, not only has she made number 3 on our list today, but I will also be doing a deep dive on her life and what has gone so dreadfully wrong. So if you would like to see that, please do subscribe. Madonna, as you know, is...
So he doesn't even list anything, really.
Yeah.
I mean, he shows some pictures, but
in that case, I could see why they're offended. Like, what she does is like, I don't know, clear dark side imagery, or I don't know, it's edgy. She's basically, basically trolling Christianity with her behaviors, and you kind of not only have to expect a reaction, but you're trying to get one. But again, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying they should be as touchy about it as they are. I think you should be able to play with the dark imagery of a religion's iconography without people getting that bent out of shape about it. But that one was meant to be what it was, I think.
Yeah, I think she's a celebrity that blew up at a young age and went a little cuckoo, just like everybody. Like, I don't know. It's just her cuckoo took the form of being really edgy, especially with against Christian stuff. So, you know, whether she's specifically demonic, I don't know. I don't think she's more demonic than anybody else that's rapping and doing the kind of stuff she does. So, you know.
Oh, I don't think she's demonic. It's an act, but it's an act meant to get a reaction.
Yeah.
But the point is, as deliberate and targeted as that was, you have to take that in the context of all the other things people are making fun of. Like, there's so many people being edgy and sarcastic and irreverent about all kinds of things. And it's not all targeted at Christianity. They just pick out the things that happen to be about them and like blow up as if the world's all here to mock them. But then when it's targeted at all these other things, they're just like, oh, people can't take a joke. Everyone's snowflakes. Da, 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 da.
Yeah. You're right. It is a little bit of two-sidedness there going on for sure. Let's look at Madonna.
Someone who I did not forget to mention on our list of the 2023 worst God mockers. And she's also made today's list at number 2, and you're about to see just why.
Put some respect on it.
Respect.
You feel me? Church on the move, man.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Jesus is in the house. And so is the Mother of God.
But here's the crazy part. Number 1 actually used to love God.
Like what are the... There's no explanation. There's no context for any of the information happening in any of these clips. Like, how can you possibly be more informed by this? You're not supposed to be informed. You're supposed to be shocked and appalled by all this. First of all, again, Madonna, not the greatest life role model. Okay, like at least not at this stage in her life. Obviously on drugs. Like you can tell from that 5-second clip, is not sober and it's just saying shit. Like who cares? Also, she's a celebrity. They say all kinds of things. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know why that has to be the worst thing in the world. But you know, but to this guy it is.
The reason she wasn't even trying to mock Christianity. The reason she said that is those characters have such a status in our society and you know you're going to get a reaction. So if you just blurt something off the cuff like that, it's an edgy thing to do. I'm sorry. And ironically, the fact that Christians get worked up about mockery and everything make their religious terminology or iconography or whatever the obvious target for this. Like people try to be edgy by going after the things people are most touchy about. So when you're this touchy about it, that's what I don't know.
This is exactly you get a video like this on YouTube that gets like 1 million views, and you know apparently people get something out of. I don't know.
Whatever.
But now
I'll let
she
you do the
hates him.
clicking,
And I cannot
think
speak about this briefly because her story is so heartbreaking. So at the end of the video, I'll direct you to a video I made about this woman and we'll go into detail about why this woman now rejects Jesus Christ. But first, know this. If you just think that I'm having a go at women, I can tell you it is quite the opposite. I could very easily make a list of the 8 biggest God mockers who are all men, and one day I probably will make that video.
But I'm not gonna do that now. Fuck it, we're dunking on the women today, boys. This one's for the men. This one's for the boys.
Yeah, I love how he says, if you just think I'm having a go at women, I also know lots of men who are God
I
markers.
could probably do it. He doesn't even try. It's awesome. Like that seems like a parody. Like that seems like it's a joke, but no, that's how this video literally plays. It's so funny.
He literally, I mean, he didn't literally say the words, but literally what he was telling us was, I am perfectly aware that there are a lot of men who mock God, and I chose not to include them on my list. I chose to make my list all women.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want to keep watching this from this point, or do you want to cut off here? Because
we can cut it off here, but the only thing in defense of him is, and this is extremely sloppily done, but the reason why he says this is about women is because the little next part of this video is just him talking about women of the Bible that were faithful to Jesus, and that is taking up the vast majority of this video. So you see like where we're paused at right now, like maybe 25% of the way in. The rest of this video is all just evangelizing. Like seriously, it gets really boring really fast. So we don't, I wanted us to watch that first part because this is just a bait and switch, and all of this dude's videos are like this, where it's like, oh, here's some celebrity gossip, here's some clips from these God mockers, and then let's sit down and tell you about the real women of the Bible, the faithful women, and that's it. That's the whole video right there.
Well, one thing that makes his selective use of women on the chart and his sensitivity toward everything that they do land a little differently is the fact that the women he uses as examples are examples because one of them cooked for Jesus and cleaned for him, and the other one sat there and listened. So basically Mary and Martha.
Yeah.
And so like,
yeah, basically
you're really riled up.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, like is this guy one of the Kens? Like he doesn't like when women act out, but it sounds like he wants them to populate his Mojo Casa dojo or whatever it is, and either get him a beer or listen to him talk about the Godfather. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh my God, Zod. Yeah, I do. It's just, yeah, we are gonna cut that video short because again, like it's not worth that much more to watch. Trust me on this one, guys. But yeah, I mean, this guy's whole video is kind of like that. Zod. Like everyone I've seen, he does talk about in his other God mockers videos, he does mention some men, but I think it still leans towards women doing stuff, which is really interesting. I don't know how I feel about that, but maybe he's. Maybe he wants the what did you say? Women likes talk about the Godfather with him. That was crazy. Did you just come up with that? Is that from something? Because I never heard.
No, that's from the Barbie movie.
Oh, okay.
That's from the Barbie.
I don't.
The men were all eager to explain the Godfather to women.
Okay, I do remember that now. I did see that movie. I forgot about that. You paid more attention to that movie than I did. Clearly, I remember the parts of her saying she's not a fascist because she doesn't control the railroads. And that was my favorite part about that movie. Weird ending, though. I get it's all about women's empowerment and stuff, and that's really cool. I still think it's weird to end it by a visit to your gynecologist. That was just kind of okay. But I didn't make the movie, so anyway.
But I think the big takeaway from that is just the weird assortment of things that he considers mockery. Yeah. And the problem is, like you said, what he says isn't that unique. And I think that's kind of the point, is this is the reaction a lot. There's always a danger in this that you're over speaking for Christians or generalizing or whatever. There are a lot of Christians who are very sensitive, but there is a significant subpopulation of evangelicals who do react like this to everything.
Yeah.
And
the thing is,
I think part of the.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say part of the thing that struck me with his list being mostly women who act out and then depicting them being in these like obedient, subservient roles. That really brought home to me the fact that this whole thing about mockery is so much about control. Like what they classify as mockery and consider a personal offense to them is such a broad range of expression, going from like trying to take their ideas down a peg through satire to just an offhand remark that happens to include the name of their religious figure. Sorry. If you were to try to abide by their rules for discourse that would keep you steering wide of blasphemy or mockery, you would be living under such tight control. That's really what I hear them going for.
You would actually be living under a fascist state of some kind if you followed their rules of speech. Seriously, like take the Madonna part. The Madonna clip, that wasn't even that bad. It was her just referencing, first of all, she's high. She's whatever she says is just take it with a grain of salt. But she's saying, oh yeah, Jesus is in the house, because the guy made a comment about how like we're like the church, and he's comparing the hype in the room to the hype of like being in a church, and he's saying, and she's like adding on to that metaphor by saying, yeah, Jesus is here, and so is Mary, Mother of God. She probably says that because I think she probably grew up Catholic, because only Catholics say stuff like that. So yeah, like she's just kind of adding to the metaphor. There's nothing really deep about it, but he doesn't like that because that's referencing these figures in a casual way. And you should only reference Jesus and Mary, Mother of God, in the highest of reverence, just like you should with our dear leader. You know what I mean? Like it's so fascist in a way. It really is kind of
yeah. And the main joke, like B.S. Lewis said, is that her name is Madonna. So it's a play on words.
Yeah,
but
that too.
Christians can't even abide a play on words if it doesn't show the utmost reference.
Yeah,
like you said, with it living under a fascist state, what it reminds me of is, and this is probably an overused comparison for basically everything, but it reminds me of The Handmaid's Tale, where everybody walks around, they have to say, under his eye, blah, 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 and then be very careful about every little thing they say and every gesture they make and every place they turn their eyes. And I think that transitions pretty neatly into the next item I found. You want me to bring it up?
Yeah, let's put it on the screen.
I actually found a handbook for a place called Gilbert's Christian Schools.
Tell me how you found this, Zod. Tell everyone how you found this school handbook about with policy specifically about mocking God. Did you just Google around? Like, what was the process here?
I was just browsing the internet for things about mockers and scorners and things like that, and this school's handbook was one of the things that came up.
Okay, because like we're about to dox like a real ass school here, so I just want to point out, like, this is a publicly available PDF file. We didn't like hack any school accounts or anything to get this. This is just out here on the internet for some sort of Christian school. And if you do, this is a freely available document posted on the internet. Yeah. Now, Zod first sent this to me, and as you see, it's like 60 pages long. So it's like, how the hell did he find this? I just do a Control F for mock or mocker, and then I find this section, which Zod is going to show in just a second.
There's a lot of stuff here that I think we can make a whole episode just out of this document and all the real weird rules they have at Christian schools.
Yeah.
But this feels eerily like the handbook for the Christian school I worked at. In a lot of ways, I don't necessarily want to talk about all here, but when you get to mockers and scorners, a discipline policy for scorners and mockers.
Here we go.
So okay, speaking of the level of control we're talking, speaking of the level of control we're talking about here, they actually have a whole policy just for scorners and mockers.
Yeah,
and this is not an outlier. I want to bring up, for 2 years, I was a principal at a Christian school up here, and they have very strict rules about any kind of deviation in terms of open disobedience or even a bad attitude. And when they have these conferences. Whenever you're in school, you go to an in-service day for conferences, whether it's a public or a private school. The private schools have their version of it. And one person talked about how you deal with mockers and scorners. There was a whole session about it, which is a little weird. And so I want to keep this in mind and talk about some of the things they said when we are looking at this.
Yeah. I will say this too. I also worked in education, though. I worked in the private sector for a tutoring company. And the kids that I would say, this wasn't all the kids that had trouble, but there's a very big common trend of a lot of the kids that had some of the hardest trouble weren't even kids that were in public school. It was a lot of homeschooled kids that suddenly took a test and realized, oh, they're behind. And then we would have our own testing procedures to see at approximately what grade level they were at. And it was not uncommon at all that my homeschool students were usually 2 to 3 grade levels behind on where they were supposed to be. in their curriculum and stuff. And a lot of that, of course, is tied directly to kids getting out of the public school because they want to be part of some Christian homeschooling group and stuff. So anyway, not a lot of good stuff to say there. But let's talk about this policy, Zod.
Yeah, I just want to read this first paragraph. The concept of someone being a scorner or mocker may be difficult to understand because the terms are not often used today. Maybe because as ideas develop, like stupid concepts get weeded out of our vocabulary.
Yeah. A scorner or mocker, please tell me, school dossier. What about these terms do I need to know? Thank you for identifying them.
Proverbs references it, blah, blah, blah. Proverbs 29:8 says, scoffers, mockers in parentheses, set a city aflame. We have discovered that classrooms and the entire school are agitated by the activities of a few scorners and mockers in our midst.
Nice.
So
nice. What a problem.
Number one, you always sound like you're on the right side of history when you complain about agitators.
Yeah.
And number two, this tells me something, which is that what they're trying to create in a Christian school, I think you want to create a certain level of behavior and a certain environment that feels like it's being directed or guided directly by God. But what you're actually doing is trying to create an artificial environment with artificial sets of behaviors. And that's why this is so easily disrupted. What you're trying to create is this weird facade that looks like God and looks like people interacting with God. And the fact that what you're trying to do is so sensitive to anybody's attitude or behavior. Sorry,
this just says a lot about the attitude the school has towards kids. Like, yeah, what school doesn't have kids that are little shitheads sometimes? Like, that's just education. That's just working with children. As a public school kid, I gotta say, it's pretty wild that in your school policy works, you literally cite the Bible as for your policy decisions. Yeah. Pretty funny stuff. Especially using a verse that says, and you skipped over this side, that scoffers and mockers will set a city aflame, which is a pretty awesome metaphor to use for like fifth graders or whatever this school is supposed to be like. These kids better stop mocking these teachers right now, or they're going to literally murder an entire city population through fire. Like, goddamn. They're very serious about this,
Yeah, what you said really gets at the point of this, I think, better than I was. Basically, kids are going to be shits. This is all developmental stuff.
Yeah.
Partly, childlike behavior in a school environment is largely the consequence of, even within public education, the environment you're putting kids in is a little bit artificial. It's a little bit exasperating and not always totally developmentally appropriate. And you're gonna get kids bored and annoyed, and you're gonna get kind of annoying behavior out of them.
Yeah.
And so this represents a total inability to understand and process that. So you think that just normal behavior for putting kids in these weird environments is them mocking and scorning. It's a deep level of sin. And then you're stirring it up in other kids, which is maybe they just feel a little empowered or emboldened by the fact that they're feeling the same thing and someone else is expressing what they're already feeling.
Yeah.
But they need to see kids as something other than that. They need to see them as either totally holy or totally righteous. And because this is a house of God and we want them to be led by God, they're way oversensitive to any normal developmental behavior.
Ultimately, too, and the sad thing is, you can create the most developmentally appropriate environment possible for a kid in an environment like school, and there's just stuff that's going to be happening at home that you just can't control. And a lot of educators bemoan this fact, but that's the reality of it. But you still try to create the best environment possible anyway, because you want all students to succeed. But yeah, eventually at some point there is like an attitude thing that you have to deal with kids, right? Like at some point there's going to be a thing where a kid's going to do something that you as an adult figure in the room either don't like or is messing up the flow of things or whatever. So I understand making a policy for dealing with like disruptive behavior in class, but the way they go about this is really very interesting, I would say.
Yeah, Hollyhock says, so they're looking for scoffers rather than looking for children who may need more assistance. And I think that cuts to the heart of this thing.
Yeah.
You're right. It doesn't need, you're right. It doesn't need to be the environment you're creating makes it difficult. A lot of this stuff is just kids just being annoying in general. And their annoying behavior comes from just their development. They're in a place where they're starting to want to be a little edgy, or they're at an energetic phase of life, or they just they want to test the boundaries and find out who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that is inappropriate, but you've got to address that in a way that helps them understand and internalize what they're going through. And a lot of times there's a positive and negative side to how they're trying to express themselves. So a lot of it's knowing the time and place. But what they're doing here doesn't help you understand what the actual impulses behind it are. It just like pounds it down and calls it all sin and says, stop it all completely. And that's so developmentally inappropriate.
Yeah. So I'm sure you did this too, Zod, but I actually had to go through training. Now, I never actually got a teacher's certificate in my role. I was actually an exception made because the company I hired usually only had people with teacher's certificate. I did not. I had a college degree that kind of helped me bypass that a bit. And also in my role, I eventually became more administrative than I did in a direct teaching role. But we usually had to hire teaching only. And it was also different post-COVID stuff too. There was some different policy changes. Point is, right, there are rules that you have to deal with in dealing with children. And if you're a good place to work at, you have training to deal with that. And when you are in training, Zod, you learn about things like, hey, kids' economic backgrounds is actually their biggest depending factor on their success, period. Doesn't matter how smart you think they are. And guess what? Almost every student I taught that needed tutoring, that was the case. They all came from, I'm sorry to say it, shitty home lives a lot of times, and also not the wealthiest families. And they were the ones that needed the help the most. Surprise, surprise. You know, the kids that did super well in tutoring, they were from the parents who had a lot of money, and the kids were already ahead, and they were putting them in tutoring programs to be even better. So there's a huge dichotomy there, and there's behavior problems when you understand, oh, this is actually a hugely socially influenced thing. And there's so much statistical evidence to support this. And this policy doesn't quote any of that, doesn't talk about anything about what's, as you mentioned, developmentally appropriate for children at this age, and just says these kids are going to burn down fucking buildings. We need a plan to kick these shits out of this school if necessary, which is what we're going to dive into here.
Yeah. I like this comment. Sometimes it is inappropriate, but I think what's really concerning is the notion that it's always inappropriate. This is basically undermining any critical engagement by students. Submit or else.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. And part of what this is, and even secular teachers can fall into this, it takes a lot of skill to really flesh out when something is inappropriate and not, to give kids enough of an allowance while still maintaining order and keeping them on the right track. That takes a lot of nuanced thinking. And it's very easy, even as a new teacher in any environment, just to lay down the law and try to create this neat box that you put everyone's behavior in.
Yeah.
But
it's stressful.
I think
I'm not saying it's easy either. I'm not saying like, teachers don't make mistakes in handling this situation, because I think you inevitably do at some point, right? But like, it's one thing to make a mistake in the moment. It's another thing to like on the policy page to like not lay down the ground rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's read this thing.
Yeah. And so, and a couple comments people have made is that this sounds just very accusatory. Like everything's instantly, it's accusatory and presumes malice. I think that's a good way to approach this. This is what they're doing for every behavior. So they're agitated by few students. Mockers make fun of diligent, hardworking students that seek to participate in class. They will sometimes ask disdainful questions just to hinder the teacher's instruction. Again, you're assuming a lot, right off the bat. And a lot of people do this, unfortunately. it makes kids that much more exasperated when you always assume the worst of any expression, and really these kinds of rules just make things worse. And I've seen that in action.
Yeah.
Scorning and mocking are proud and arrogant attitudes and behaviors that hinder our purposes in academic excellence and Christ-like behavior. So I would agree that what they categorize as scorning and mocking do interfere with the false facade of like artificial boxed-in behavior they call Christ-like. Anyway, let's get to this list. Following are some typical ways in which disrespect may be communicated. Dan, why don't you read some of these off for us?
Oh, yes. Let's go ahead and do it. So we've got verbal communication. The following is a list of something of the typical ways in which disrespect may be communicated. Verbal communication patterns, non-verbal communication patterns. That's everything. You could have just ended the list right there. That's like saying,
so yeah,
the universe is everything that's in this box and everything that's outside of this box.
Yeah, basically the first 3 points along with the introduction are basically a tautology. Yeah. Disrespect may be communicated through all the ways of communicating.
Yeah. So okay.
Anyway,
if you're wondering why is it worded like this? So when parents have conferences with teachers and with school administration stuff, they have to cite policy as to why they've made certain decisions that they have, right? Therefore, they have to list out the activities that are appropriate and inappropriate. For example, like I saw earlier in this document, they're talking about School Spirit Day. They said you can't wear things including like bathing suits on a School Spirit Day. They have to have that written down so they can point to that and say, we can't do this, right? Especially big in this kind of environment. By doing this, they've literally covered all ground. There is nothing, you don't have to do shit anymore. You can just say it falls under one of these two categories and that's it. So, this is just to help the teachers more than anything. But yeah.
Let's blow through some of these pretty quick though.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
That's vague. Where I think this gets really crazy intense is when it gets specific.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we got arrogant tone of voice, which is interesting because there's definitely multiple tones of voice that could be considered inappropriate. But sure, let's go with arrogant. An angry glare, rolling of the eyes, slander or insulting speech. Rolling of the eyes sounds like you're like a medieval doctor trying to describe like, oh, there's something wrong with the humors. You've got the rolling of the eyes going on,
Well, and the most rolling of the eyes. Okay, that is a weird phrasing. But when someone rolls their eyes at you, they obviously are communicating something. In most cases, angry glare.
An angry glare.
Maybe this person is like bottling a lot of stuff up. Like, I think one of the when someone is having such a hard time, sometimes they could just be trying to express aggression. Sometimes they're just bottling up stuff and they don't know what to do with it, and it can come out that way. And the last thing you need to do is just jump on them and say, "You are being a mocker and a scorner right now." I don't know. They're taking a lot of really complex things and just trying to hit it all with a hammer. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's true. We also got gossip, avoidance of eye contact when being spoken to. So sucks for all the autistic kids you got to deal with, I guess. You're breaking the rules. So,
or all the people from subcultures or cultures that eye contact is considered disrespectful.
Yeah.
So a kid comes from a background where you don't make eye contact and they can't do that by reflex, and you jump on them for being a mocker.
Yeah, it's true.
Sorry,
go. We got contempt or sneering speech, patronizing speech, an angry sigh or heavy breath of disgust / contempt, disobedience / uncooperativeness, a smirk or patronizing smile, a hateful tone of voice, slouching in defiance, disrespectfully asking why, the silent treatment when asked a question, sarcastic or rude speech, derogatory, derisive, or disparaging speech, deceitful or misleading speech / lying, disruptive, annoying noises, or whispering comments under the breath, folks, if this is grounds for kicking out a kid, no kid belongs in any school ever. Like, you just literally listed everything a teenager has ever done in their entire lives. Even the good kids. That's so
you could stress yourself out constantly trying to be a good kid, and there is no way that you could make it through your day and not do something that could be interpreted as something on this list by a teacher. This gives teachers so much ammo to get kids in trouble for anything. And I don't think this puts teachers in an easy position either. There's almost nothing worse than being a teacher at a Christian school. Like, it's super stressful because this doesn't just give you power. This puts expectations on you to monitor kids' behavior to the extent that you get all these kinds of results.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's blow through the steps of dealing with this.
Yeah. Can we talk about that summary real quick though? I think that's good too.
Yeah.
Just briefly. I'll go through it if you scroll up. The difficulty we face is that the very scorning and mocking we are seeking to correct is resistance to discipline. Since a few scorners and mockers can disrupt the entire school, we are going to seek to identify and deal with them in a very purposeful manner. If our attempt at loving correction does not produce the desired changes in behavior and or attitude, these students will be asked to leave GCHS. And then, of course, they got a Bible verse there. And the following is a brief summary of how GCS will handle scorners and mockers. I feel like we're talking about I don't know, like we're dealing with a pest problem, like we're dealing with roaches or something. Like, here's the steps we're gonna do to take care of this.
Yeah.
Step 1: the teacher will speak to the.
Hang on. I just want to point something out.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how much behavior is encompassed by mocking and scorning in this document. And look at what a hammer they're automatically hitting every single childlike behavior with, and the expectations they have. Basically, if you get caught acting your age developmentally and you still continue acting your age, or you act out in a way that expresses the normal stress that anybody would feel under these rules or under the constant monitoring of every gesture you make, then you could end up being kicked out. It's just so weird.
Yeah. Well, let's go.
It's incredibly intense too. Like, oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Give your take, Zod. You had a take. All right, he's being quiet. Step 1.
I'm mocking you through the silent treatment.
You're mocking me through the silent treatment. Oh, Zod, we're gonna have to have a talk. Let's go through step 1. The teacher will speak to the student privately to make him/her aware of the effect his/her behavior is having on the other students. He/she will be encouraged to improve the offending behavior. Okay, this is fine, actually. I'm actually totally okay with this. I don't have any problems with this. I think this is normal. And I think this is appropriate. What do you think, Zod? Do you think that step's okay?
There's a
assuming the kid is actually being like a shit and not like just normal kid, right?
I think aside from the fact the whole process has been poisoned by the intensity of how they expect you to approach every behavior, I think this is the most sensible thing you could do to deal with.
Okay, yeah. No, everything after this is batshit. Like escalatingly so. But I think this first step is okay, right? Because here's step 2. Yeah. If the behavior is not radically changed in 2 or 3 days, the student will be talked with again privately and the parents will be contacted by the teacher. 1, the student, first of all, you don't do 1. God, you already have step 1, 2, and 3. You should organize the list by A, B, and C afterwards. That would make it more clear because now I'm saying 1 and it could be referring to a step. Anyway, 1, the student will be reminded of the previous conversation. 2, a review of the behaviors and the effect of the class will be given. 3, the student will be told that if the behavior doesn't change, they will suffer the consequences of their poor choices. Holy shit, Zod. First of all, what teacher has time to do this for every time a kid is acting shitty? Like, if you're at a big school, Zod, you don't have time. to deal with every kid that may have slightly problematic behavior in your class, like in this level of fashion, right? Like I know the teachers I worked with certainly didn't.
You get a group of kids running around a school, and at any particular moment, you're dealing with at least a half dozen kids who are doing something on this list of mocking behaviors to some extent whatsoever. It is exhausting.
Yeah.
And as a teacher or a principal, you are under such a microscope to control so much of everybody's behavior. This isn't good for anybody, teachers or students. No. But anyway.
No. You've got 50 minutes a day to teach, around that, to teach a subject, and you hope that everybody's listening and getting on focus, and you spend as much time as possible, and you just want to get the work done, in my experience. Like, if behavior is getting to a point, then you have to deal with it. But if it's not radically changed in 2 or 3 days, if you feel like a kid is radically changed in 2 or 3 days, you are being deceived, my friend. The kid is putting on a front for you. That's not how these behavior changes work. That's a fantasy. If you believe you can have one magic conversation and a kid's life is just going to completely change for the better, that is absolute fantasy. It's just not how that works. At least not in my experience.
They're fundamentally misunderstanding everything at the root of these gestures, or what causes you to express yourself these ways.
Yeah.
And the basic fiction behind it is they see it all as a choice to sin or not sin. So this student just has 2 or 3 days to just fucking quit sinning.
Yeah.
That's the problem is that's how they see it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let's keep going. Step 3. After the first 2 steps have been done, student will be referred to the guidance counselor, who will survey other teachers to see if they are also having problems with this particular student. God damn. You can get put on the surveillance list. And this is just after doing 2. It doesn't say, it's regardless of whether the conversation went well or not. Like, you're getting put on a list and being watched by a guidance counselor. Good Lord. I don't know what guidance counselors, I don't know what their daily schedule is like, but I imagine that must be a pain as well, to get reports from all the teachers and stuff. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. Step 4. Parents will be called, and concerns about the behavior and attitude will be communicated, as well as the current expectations and interventions. The vice principal and or principal will be informed about the conversation. Okay, so more conversations with the parents after you've already had conversations with the parents?
Yeah, part of the issue here is this is just a sloppy list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, step 2 is that you contact the parents.
Yeah.
No further contingency has happened between step 2 and step 4. This is just describing the same process, but step 4, you're calling the parents when that was already step 2 at the same level of this whole thing. It's weird.
Yeah, that was not very well written. Step 5, if no change occurs, vice principal and or principal will be requested to meet with teachers first, and then the student to develop a plan for correction. Okay, like, first of all, a kid has like 8 teachers they see every day. So you're going to talk to all of those teachers for all of their classes to make sure that all of them are being followed. And that's just for that one kid. If you got multiple kids you're dealing with, which it sounds like you would be if you're at this school, that's a teacher going to a lot of meetings about specific students and stuff.
These are not educational professionals. These are whoever the church could find that was willing to work for like $20,000 to $30,000 a year with no health benefits. So you don't really exactly have the educational A team assembled here to deal with this problem.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely not. Maybe the guidance counselor, but I don't even know if that would be the case all the time. Step 5. Oh, we got a comment here you want to read?
Yeah, the kids who actually changed in 2 to 3 days weren't actually being defiant are now going to develop anxiety over how their behavior is being interpreted.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's one thing that could happen. Either kids develop a neurosis over how every little thing they're doing is being interpreted, and they bottle up all their emotions and box in their ways of expressing themselves, or the kids who, whether or not they're being defiant, are just good at manipulation, just manipulate. So you're basically just punishing the manipulative kids and the socially aware kids, and you're rewarding them and punishing kids who just
Who
don't know how
aren't
to contain their
manipulative.
normal expressions.
Yeah, exactly. Step 6, vice principal and or principal will call and inform the parents that the student is on official probation and will be placed on a behavior contract, whatever the hell that means. I imagine it's like, here's a contract you have to sign as a kid to say that you're going to be on your best behavior as like a probationary punishment. And of course, you make the kids sign it, right? Or else they can't go to school there, I imagine, is the conversation. So kind of a forced play for a lot of people.
And I wonder what these contracts look like. Do they have like, do they take bullet points off of here and make it specific? So like that this specific student says you can't smirk or have a patronizing smile anymore. You can't slouch in defiance.
When I worked at a Christian camp, we had this idea called contracts, and it was whatever funny item we had that we would make all the kids sign their name on, and we would all come in a group and say, okay, what are the rules that we want for this week? We want to, all have good attitudes, right? What other rules do you guys want for this week? And then we'd say, okay, whenever somebody acted bad, it's like, all right, well, you signed this contract that said that we were going to follow the rules, right? Not like we had a choice. And of course they had to sign the contract to keep being at the camp. Yeah. Like, it's not like they had a choice with it, but yeah, it's kind of what this reminds me of. Just another control technique that doesn't really work, honestly. Step 7. Kids don't really understand the nuances of contract law. Okay, little fourth graders aren't really like super into contracts. It turns out. So anyway, sorry.
This contract basically, I think they maybe think that the kid's going to internalize this, but largely this just gives a basis for the school to do whatever they're going to do next, and it probably might be more for the parents than the kid, really.
Yeah, again, it's to set precedent. Yeah.
Oops. Tilting windmills. So the schools don't even hire accredited teachers. No, some could be hired by, just kind of incidentally. But number one, most accredited teachers are going to be working at a public school where they get okay pay and benefits and retirement. These are just at a private school. It's usually just whoever you can get at the church that like wants to give it a try, and you think they're somewhat good with kids, and you pick what you can get anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works in other countries, but in the United States, if you're a part of a private school, you don't necessarily have to hire teachers with that are accredited in any way. Plus, it varies from state to state as well. In your education requirements. So, but let's go last step here. Step 7. If the problems are still not resolved, the student will be recommended for dismissal, regardless of the time of year. So again, like not a lot of like unless this thing is sloppily written, which I imagine part of it is, it seems like it escalates from, okay, you were bad once and maybe you did it again, to like, okay, you're about to get kicked out like real fast.
Yeah.
At the school.
So do you want me to tell you the process that was explained to me when I was at a Christian school?
Yes, you tell me that, please.
This is like totally lax compared to what I was told.
Really?
So they said basically, once someone's a mocker or a scorner, you give them no quarter whatsoever. It says that they said that anytime kids are doing these kinds of things, they are being defiant on purpose, and they are in direct opposition to the goals of the school. Furthermore, they would not have steps like you talk to the student privately. You do not consult, the individual teacher does not consult with the parents or the student ahead of time, because then what happens is the student gets a sniff of what's coming and they dig in and fight harder and stuff. They get to start talking to the other parents and telling different stories to all the other teachers and sowing a lot of confusion. So what you do is the teacher goes and talks to the principal. They gather all the other teachers in a room before the parents or the student have been notified, and the teachers all agree what this person is doing is deliberate mocking and scorning, and they come to an agreement before the student or the parents can muddy the story at all. Then what you do is, with every single teacher who works with that student and the principal and the pastor in a room, you issue the student and parents in before they've heard the first word, and the school the principal of the school just says with everybody present, this is what you are doing. We know this is what you intend by it, and you are expected to immediately change, or you're going to have to leave the school. And so they bypass any individual confrontation. They come up with a consistent story. He said one of the most important key things you need to do is come up with a united understanding among all the staff of what this student's doing and what it means before you ask any questions or speak to anybody, the student or the family, and then you just inform them what the student means and how it needs to stop before they can continue going to the school.
Zod, did you work at a school or for a cult? What the fuck? That's crazy.
This wasn't even my school. This was all the local area Christian schools would attend this conference, and this is what the speaker they paid to come in and inform all the schools about mockers, and scorners said to do.
That's crazy. What? Again, like, when do teachers have time to go to these meetings and report on individual student activity? Like, if I ever had to talk to about student activity, the principal would come find me and I would tell them. But, like, I would never have to, like, I don't go to meetings with other teachers and try to get stories straight on a student. What does that mean? That's crazy. Like,
I'm going to talk about it more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh,
I was just saying, like, when I was there. Yeah, I would want to hear more about it on your main channel for sure. But again, my experience, because when I started, I did contract work at a school. So I was at a school and doing teaching. And then eventually I worked at a center that was separate from any school environment. But my experience was you got so much time with a kid during the day, and you got about 5 minutes while the bell's ringing to get ready for the next class, and just move on. Like, you don't have time for any of that kind of stuff. That sounds nuts. I don't think that sounds like a guy came up with a cool plan in his head and then just does it at conferences. And I don't know who knows if any of that stuff actually gets implemented. That's wild.
People who set up fundamentalist Christian education, they do all this with a very neat sense of how the world works. And everything works great if you entertain the fiction that people will behave a certain way if they're righteous before God and have godly intentions and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't take into account anything about the messy reality, not only of child development, but just of how humans interact and how all the adults and kids and everything are going to behave toward each other if you put them in this environment. So giant mess. That school thing took a lot more time than I thought it would, but I don't think I fully understood how much is there and all the implications of it, but it's pretty wild.
Yeah. I'm glad we spent time talking about it. There are some other articles that you had found that were interesting to look at, but I think, probably spoke to a lot of the sentiment we already felt about some of this. Although we went to a really interesting place with the Christian education thing. Maybe we should talk more about that in the future. I'd love to hear more about your stories, but.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's crazy. It's extremely unhealthy for the students. It's extremely stressful for the adults. Like you said, you're under a very big time crunch when you're just a teacher in a regular public school. When you're in a Christian school, there's something that feels nicer about going to just a church in a small little environment. You're dealing with all the Christian kids, but when you pack them into this tight little building and you're dealing with kids, not just from the time the bell rings to the time it rings again at the end of class, but you're dealing with them in the hallway. You're seeing them again at church. And the kids don't like being that pent up. And then the level of not only behavior, but attitude that you're supposed to maintain constantly is just exhausting. But we'll stop there. We're getting toward the bottom of the hour and we need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So next week we'll talk about how if we can find any examples of Christians mocking or making fun of other people's perspectives, we'll talk about that.
Well, if we can do it again, we might have some trouble finding content related to that, but we're gonna do our best for it. But yeah, Zod, I like what we did today. I think it was good. The question is, maybe we're the real mockers after all. and maybe the Christians don't mock anybody, and they're just perfect, right? Maybe that's not the question, actually. Maybe
Well, I'll ponder that.
Okay.
But we should wrap up. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for all the comments. My voice is very dry and I have a little bit of a cold, so I apologize. I kind of had to cough and lost my voice a little bit. But also, thanks patrons. Appreciate all of you in every capacity. And I will give the final word today.
Oh, you will? Because I had something.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Yours
Say yours
good.
then. I feel like I put you on the spotlight. Say yours.
Mine was maybe the real mockers were the friends we made along the way. But that it's not as original as yours, probably.
No, it is precisely as original as mine because that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
No, that was literally what I was going to say.
Wait, really?
Right.
Is that...
No, I'm serious. Yeah, you were sitting there. You were sitting there when you were saying maybe we're the real mockers. The phrase "maybe we're the mockers of the friends we made along the way" popped in my mind, and so I was waiting to say it.
Oh no, we're basic. We're fucking basic, Zod. That's terrible. Oh no. Oh no.
Maybe the mockers were the friends we made along the way.
Folks,
good night, everybody.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Voy a cantar esta canción con mucho cariño de mi corazón a la República Dominicana, la casa del merengue y la casa de la bachata. Voy a cantar esta canción con mucho cariño de mi corazón a la República Dominicana, la casa del merengue y la casa de la bachata. La casa del merengue, la y la casa de la bachata. Música, 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 te traigo música. Música, música, música de la República. ¡Ajá!